So today's session, and thank you so much for joining me because I know it can be there's a lot of noise and a lot of activities out there. So just taking your lunchtime to join me, I really, really appreciate it. And I am super grateful for that. And I do hope you get something great out of this. So today we're going to look at, by starting, a question, what are your biggest challenges in the lead up to the festive period? Now, if you can't use the QR code to access this, by all means, just put it into the chat as well. So what are your biggest challenges in the lead up to the festive period? Now, this doesn't necessarily have to do with parenting. So if you are a parent, and a lot of the content today is centered around parenting, but if you're not a parent, if you're an educator or you just have an interest, what are your biggest challenges in the lead up to the festive period? And even if you are a parent, it doesn't need to be a parenting issue. There will be a word cloud. So when you're participating, it should come up any minute now, just in the chat, enjoying it like others. Yeah, that's fantastic. So the biggest challenges in the lead up to the festive period. For me, I always find it tends to be just rushed. Everything is rushed, and it feels like sometimes you don't get all the things done that you want to do. And trying to avoid overwhelm, setting boundaries for teens, emotional regulation, overwhelm, reducing stress. Brilliant, now we're getting there. Managing finances, thinking of gifts, planning around the festivities. Yeah, amazing. That is fantastic. I'm going to just move on. If you don't get a chance, brilliant. High emotions, managing finances, brilliant. We'll move on. So today I'm going to look at why positive psychology. So why do we talk about positive psychology in relation to either parenting or working around young people? Because it's a strengths-based approach. So positive psychology looks for the good in things as opposed to all the things that are going wrong. The closest thing to positive psychology and positive psychology coaching might be clinical psychology, which tends to go down the more therapeutic route. And sometimes that process starts with what's wrong. Whereas in positive psychology, we start with what's strong. And I'd like you to keep that premise with you as we go through this today. It's also really good for improving relationships. So that's relationships with ourselves and relationships with others around us. It is amazing for stress reduction, and it has very simple strategies that you can adopt and use in your day-to-day life without changing very much. But it's all about empowerment and growth, which works beautifully with and around young people. And modeling as well, modeling positivity and the effects that has can be really a key, not only for other relationships, not only with our children, but if we're our work colleagues or our partners. And if you don't mind, again, looking at this word cloud, what emotions do you feel in response to challenging behaviors? So this is more about us. So how do we feel when we're challenged, either by children around us, by our partners, by our family? Because often Christmas and the festival holidays tend to be, often are, not always, but often are centered around family. And not all families are as connected as other families. So anxiousness, helplessness, exhaustion, frustration. It's a lot of expectations. Yeah, important to stay calm, understand the situation, finding root cause of those challenging behaviors. Yeah, the importance to stay calm, understanding the situation. These are great. Thank you. It is really useful to understand what you're thinking and how you're feeling. So we can learn more, and so maybe then I can adapt what I'm doing today for you. So looking at emotional awareness and self-regulation, which is super key when we are around young people. And you just shared some of your frustrations and anxiousness and worries in the lead up to the festive period. What often happens when we're not emotionally aware of ourselves, we can react as opposed to respond. And positive psychology helps us respond just that little bit more controlled if we're aware of it. What we want to understand is the frustration and stress that we're feeling inside and what our expectations are of ourselves and our children and our family and our partners around us. And often this is filled with quite a lot of conflict. Can you just share with me, please, how stressed you are right now? So from a scale of 1 to 10, how stressed do you feel right now? Oh, I'm so sorry to hear some people are very, very, very stressed. So we've got 8.3, we've got a 9, we've got a 10. Yeah, it is where you are right now. And that's very valid. And I'm hoping that some part of today will really assist you and help you. So often when we're stressed, either with our children or in our work environment, just in the home environment, it can be to do with a conflict between the reality and expectations. And what I mean by that is that you might be living a particular or seeing a particular reality, and the expectations are higher. And coming up in the lead to Christmas, or even toward the end of the year, the expectations can be quite high. So we're looking at what we were supposed to achieve, the expectations of making the perfect Christmas, of being there for everyone. And there's a conflict between what we need as an individual and what other people need from us. So I'm assuming everyone knows how to breathe. But I just want to go through really, really quickly, and it can't be overemphasized, that breathing makes a huge difference to our autonomic nervous system. So basically, our nervous system is what protects us, protects our body. It keeps us from danger. And if you all have heard of the fight, flight, freeze reactions when we get stressed or there's a conflict, our breath might increase, our brain will stop thinking because all the blood is rushed out of our brain and into our limbs to get ready to fight, to run, or to freeze. And when we engage our breathing, it recenters everything. And I want to take you through it. Apologies if you know this breathing technique already, but it is the most simplest breathing technique I know, because you don't have to remember figures. So for me, okay, breathe in for 4, hold for 8, and then breathe out for 7. I just can't get my head around those numbers. So this is called box breathing, square breathing. And all you're doing is breathing in for 4, holding your breath for 4, breathing out for 4, and holding for 4. And I would really love if you could all join me in just doing that for 2 rounds, just so we see what it feels like for us. So if we can breathe in for 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and hold, 2, 3, 4, breathing out, 2, 3, 4, and holding, 2, 3, 4. Breathe in, 2, 3, 4, hold, 2, 3, 4. Breathe out, 2, 3, 4, and hold, 2, 3, 4. Now, why this is also so great is because it's very easy to teach to kids. And when we're breathing, if we're visibly breathing in front of our children, so if we find we're stressed or having a situation and you just stop for a minute, it helps us pause. It offers a pause within the situation. And it's also teaching the child some additional tools that you're using to self-regulate. So breathing is ultimately your friend in any situation, and it supports everything else that we're going to do. For those of you who don't know who I am, who have just joined this call, my name is Zeena Hicks. I am a positive psychologist, and I also am mom of 2 boys who are both neurodivergent. They've got ADHD, ASD, and lots of other learning differences. But it makes the household very, very challenging. And one of the reasons I went into positive psychology, not necessarily because of my children, But I hadn't realized the impact that I was having and my stress was having on my kids. And also, I felt I'd moved from Dublin, living in the UK, so I didn't have immediate family around me. I just felt a bit, what can I do? And these resources that positive psychology gave me was to be able to see things differently and to give me the courage to be able to look for some help. I'm also midway through a doctorate at the moment on the effectiveness of positive psychology self-coaching for parents of children with ADHD. So that means using positive psychology and teaching oneself that and using that as one's own way of being can support and actually influence those around you. So you can actually influence your children, change their behaviors by just changing yourself, which I find absolutely fascinating. Right, moving on. So particularly looking at ourselves and the influence we can have, I'd like to look at empathy and connectivity or connection as a de-escalation tool. Think about when your child might be most upset, when they've come home from school or there's been conflict in the household. What do you think they need most? What is it that you think that your child needs most when they are very upset? I hope this could be a reasonably easy one. To be heard. Thank you. Just reading off the chat as well. To be heard, the need to feel safe. Yeah, absolutely. To be nurtured, connection. Wonderful. Time to feel the emotions. Yeah, well, great. To feel safe. To be heard. Fantastic. Yeah, and a lot of these are around to know I'm listening. Yeah, and it's interesting. We sometimes lose these key aspects of what the child needs most because of our expectations. And when I mean expectations, if you're busy and you've got 101 things to do and your child then throws a tantrum, you're probably going to be less patient and tolerant. And if it's a regular occurrence, you might not be as compassionate at that particular time, which might escalate the situation. So often we know what we need to do, want to do, but we don't know necessarily how to do it. And that was the one thing with me. I always found that, yeah, I know what to do. I know I need to be this way, and I know I need to show up this way, but how do I do this when everything else is so overwhelming and things are so busy? And the best way to maybe start that questioning is understand, well, what am I feeling? So if the child is having a moment in front of you, what am I feeling right now? Am I feeling safe? Especially if your child is telling you something, come home from school, let's say, and there was a challenge at school, and sometimes we can get really upset and angry on their behalf. What, they said that to you, that's not right, and you're thinking either saying it or thinking it. So understanding how you're feeling at the time when your child is upset or there's any extreme behaviors going on can be a great start. And then from that perspective, you can then observe what's happening rather than trying to fix things. As a parent, sometimes we fall into the category of wanting to make things better by fixing things and supporting. And that when you go down the fixing route, it is undoing some of the supportive, the nurturing, the understanding, the listening part of things. So starting with something like, I see you're feeling, as a way to validate those emotions and maybe open up that conversation. And then there's 3 steps you can consider in these moments. Again, remembering what's your agenda, what are you feeling, what are your expectations, what is the reality of the situation. And by validating their feelings, you can start to open up. So I see you're upset, describing the situation, using the words of what you're observing. And then you can start to ask little questions like, what's going on for you? How are you feeling? And sometimes, depending on what has caused that upset, and they might know really what's going on at that particular time, because they might be conflicted between the reality and the expectations. And then when they started to calm down, you can start to find a solution, and ask them, what do you want? What is it that you want? understanding what their expectations are, and also then aligning it with your own. And this is a perfect time to, let's say, model or use that 4 square breathing or box breathing technique. Because if the child is not calming down, there's something called co-regulation that is a wonderful gift as a parent. Also works in the workplace as well. But if you can find a way to remain calm, even when there's a massive upset in the house, and using that 4 square breathing visibly in front of them. Now, I used to get, when I started this whole work, is like, what are you doing? I go, just breathing. And if you start doing that, those visible actions that you are regulating, they will start to copy you. Maybe not straight away, but they start to see you regulating, and they're learning. They're learning through observation. And then with these challenges, you can start to reframe them. And remembering positive psychology is all about reframing. It's starting on what's strong as opposed to what's wrong, and looking at these challenges as great opportunities. So here are a few strengths. These strengths come from the Biocharacter Strengths Institute, and they're based on 24 character strengths that every single human has. And we all have them in different levels. So you might say, well, I'm really not very good at prudence, being cautious. I kind of do things on a whim all of the time. But that doesn't mean you can't have prudence. It's not you can't be cautious. You can, but sometimes it takes a bit of effort and a lot of self-awareness and calming down to be able to do that. But we still have it. We still have every single one of these. And I'd like you to look at these strengths and see if you can pick out 2 or 3 that you go, yeah, that's definitely my child, or that's definitely me, if you're not here from a parenting capacity. So thinking about your child for a moment, or as I said, yourself, or a child that you can think of, and just pick out 2 or 3 of these strengths and go, yeah, I can see that. I can see that they are actually very kind. They can have tantrums and they can do this, but inside they're really kind, and they're very curious, always in everything. So just think of those, and I'm going to ask you now to share those with us. So I'd like you to share your child's strengths just here. Again, you can use the chat if that works better for you. My child's strengths are perseverance and kindness and honesty. And the interesting thing with strengths, so let's just take more fairness than honesty, both, but let's say fairness for a moment. He can be incredibly fair, making sure that everybody is included. If we're sharing something, it has to be fair. But with strengths, we can also over-engage with them or under-engage with them. So sometimes fairness, if you're in a school environment and somebody's treated one way and somebody else is treated another way, it can cause quite a bit of conflict. So the more we can use our strengths and understand what our strengths, the positive side of those strengths, and understanding when they can maybe get a little bit out of kilter. So being kind, being brave. Yeah, so bravery at its best is, let's say, going up into a group of young people and starting a conversation. That's a very brave thing to do. But also the bravery might maybe overextend that and turn into a bit overly confident. It's really good to be aware of this and understand this language and think about this language and see how we can use it when we're speaking to our young people. So all of the above and ways, yes, they all have all of these strengths, but 1 or 2 might just pop out. And when we're looking at strengths and nurturing strengths in the house, just trying to shift your focus towards these strengths and asking, when are they using these strengths? So have it becoming a common language in your house. So we know that kindness, bravery, courage, love of learning, honesty, fairness, all of these words, if we can use them more commonly in our vocabulary, we are moving away from things like, oh, you're so smart, because smart is not quite a character strength. And sometimes the difference in the use of that language can make a huge difference to a young person's self-esteem and growth. When we're shifting towards strengths, we want to look at what it is they're doing, what are their strengths, and use that in common language. So we might use, let's say, kindness. Oh, it's so good that you were so incredibly kind to your sister. I could see that it took a lot of effort because she was being a little bit mean to you, but you were so kind. Well done. And you also might look at using your own strengths. So, for instance, I found that really hard to do this piece of work, but I persevered and kept on going. And I'm really pleased with myself. I'm really proud of myself. So using those kind of words and language can be really encouraging for young people, and they start to adapt that language and they can start to self-regulate as well. So modeling your own strengths, that is, what strengths do I have? They can see you're using your strengths. Focusing on character, not ability. Emphasis on the journey. So if you think of a child climbing a wall and they stop in the middle and they start to cry and say, I can't do it, I can't do it, I can't do it. Well, actually, they've already gone 3 steps up. So they're already doing incredibly well. Thinking about how you might support that situation. We should be using the same kind of language in our day-to-day and just being visible, making sure that you are being very visible in how you are showing up as a parent. What kind of language are you using? Are you saying, oh, I shouldn't have done that, or oh, that wasn't as good as I wanted it to be? Think about what you're doing and saying and modeling yourself as well. I've created a cheat sheet for diffusing challenging behaviors, and I've got 20 strategies on there to keep you and your little big ones focused on the positives over the festive period. It'll come in your inbox tomorrow along with the recording of this, and I hope that's of value to you. I'm going to stop my share, and if you could open up your cameras so I can see your lovely faces, that would be incredible.